Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and man, I really appreciate you guys making some time out of your day to check the video out. And guys, today we're going to be talking about bass boats as far as what to look for when you're wanting to buy one. I'm going to give you guys some tips and advice that I've learned from having boats for almost 50 years. It's going to avoid getting some buyer's remorse, because I've had probably, I know I've had close to 50 boats throughout my whole life, the ones that I bought and the ones that I've had, you know, through different type of sponsorships with boat companies. So I've got a lot of experience on what to look for and how not to get screwed when you're buying a boat. So we're going to go over that. And also, guys, if you guys are interested in a boat, I'm going to put the Boatworks link in the description. They got a great selection, guys. Skeeters, Camus, wide variety of different bass boats that you know, Express out there for aluminum boats. So if you guys are interested in buying one, that's a great boat company to buy, or that's a great boat dealership to buy one from. So link in the description there. Okay guys, what to look for here. First of all, you know, when you're talking about bass boats, not one size fits all with that, because everybody has a boat that they need to get different things out of, and everybody's got a budget with the boat. So there's a lot of different things that you can look for out there sort of when you're buying a boat. So I'm gonna sort of give you guys some tips and advice on a used boat, and if you want a new boat, either one with that. I've had a lot of used junky bass boats, guys. When I started out fishing, about the first, you know, 8 or 10 years where I started fishing, from about when I was in high school back to the mid 80s, I just had little junky bass boats that, you know, I bought basically for mowing lawns and, you know, waiting tables and, you know, washing cars and everything like that. And then I've had new boats with that too. So a couple of different things about when you're looking to buy a used bass boat. Number one, you've got to make sure the motor's in good condition. And the best thing that you can do on that is to have a compression check done. A compression check that's sort of like the underlying you know, indicator as far as if the motor is going to hold up for you guys down the road. So, you know, any used boat that you buy, guys, get a compression check done on the motor with that. And don't really pay that much attention to as far as the condition that the motor is in, because a lot of times, depending upon the bottom compositions where people fish, the lower unit of a boat can be all scratched up and that type of stuff. But so I don't think you should be overly concerned if the lower unit's a little bit scratched up there on that. What are you guys doing back there? Hey, I got the kids in here getting some toys out of there. So don't really pay too much attention if your lower unit's scratched up. You definitely want to check the shaft on the propeller to make sure the shaft's not bent, because a bent shaft is extremely common, and a bent shaft is a big problem because eventually it's going to wear out your seals and have, you know, you're going to shell your lower unit. So pay close attention if that shaft is belt. Next thing to look for on it, guys, examine the boat for any type of stress cracks, especially around the transom. Stress cracks can indicate how much rough water that boat's been in and how much abuse it's had. Stress cracks on the side of the boat, I don't really think are that big of a deal, because a lot of times if you bounce off, say you're fishing on a windy day and you hit a piece of standing timber, you may get a little stress crack in there. Not really that big of a deal in my opinion. A lot of people get overly obsessed with how scratched up the boat is on the bottom. Excuse me, I've sold boats in the past where I've had scratches on the bottom and people get freaked out on that. Guys, don't get freaked out on that, because if you fish out of a bass boat, you're going to scratch the bottom. You're going to run across there's going to be a little piece of rebar here and there or something sharp in the water, and you're going to scratch up the bottom of the boat. Not a big deal with that. Next thing with that is storage. Storage is a big deal on a boat. I think one of the biggest things to look for is that you got ample storage as far as to set your batteries up in, rod lockers, all that type of storage with it. That's going to be a big deal with that. And finally, the hull design is really critical too, as far as the type of hull design that you get. If you fish rough water a lot, you need to have a deeper sided boat with a more of an extreme V on it. If you're fishing rivers and stuff like that, you might be able to get away with a flat bottom, something like that. I would recommend, guys, if you're looking for a used boat and you don't fish a lot of tournaments, to consider an aluminum boat. Aluminum boats, I just think they're a better value for a used boat, and they'll get everything done that you need to get done. So, and then again, you know, what you consider a used boat can be anything from 30-year-old boat to a couple-year-old boat. So it all sort of falls under the same category of that. So, and you have to like it, guys. You have to like the looks of your boat, you know, if you're going to spend that kind of money on it. Now, as far as a new boat goes, when you're picking out a new boat, a lot of the same things apply with that. But one of the things that you have to consider when you're buying a new boat, I think, is resale value, unless you plan on keeping it. If you plan on buying a boat and keeping it for the rest of your life, not that big of a deal. But if you plan on buying a boat and reselling it at some point, a couple different considerations with that. Number one is the brand of the boat has a lot to do with it. Stick with the brand and do some research into the sort of like the history and the reputation that brand has. That goes a long way into reselling a boat. A lot of boats today, guys, that are new, they're all that same price point, which are way overpriced. They're all, you know, knocking at that $100,000 mark. And if you buy sort of an off-brand type bass boat, you're never going to get even close to your money out of that. So that's a big consideration with that. Next thing, guys, examine the quality of the components. Now, the quality of the components, one of the easiest ways you can tell this, guys, is sort of like how the boat is put together, as far as the anchor ties on it, as far as the rivets, as far as the screws that are used, the size and the gauge, how well they go in there, how much plastic is on the boat versus different type of materials. The more plastic that you have on the interior part of the boat, that's a cheaper indication as far as there's going to be fading down the road there, and that's not going to be quite as good. But pay close attention to those component parts of it, and it's easy to tell. It's just like a fishing lure. You can tell the components on a Megabass Vision 110, like the split rings and the hooks. If you put them up next to a cheaper bait, like some off-brand crankbait or jerkbait you'd find at Walmart, you can tell real quick as far as the quality of the components. Next thing on a new one, guys, is really spend a lot of time looking back there in the battery compartment, like I talked about on the used boats. The battery compartments today are complex and detailed. Now, you know, you got different combination of battery chargers, you got some, power pole stuff in there, you've got different type of pumps in there, you've got, some type of switches that switch the batteries over to give power to a different part of the boat there. Make sure whatever you're looking for there is functional. Make sure everything's not squeezed in too tight. You don't want that. You need to have some additional room with that. Next thing is pay close attention to the carpet. That's another way to tell how good a boat is built as far as the quality of the carpet. It's the same deal with carpet in a house. You can tell if it's cheap carpet or you can tell if it's good carpet. So pay close attention to that. And another thing with that, if you're going to spend $100,000 on a boat, guys, you need to have a test drive. Don't go putting down paying as much money for a boat as most people or pay for a house without driving that thing. So whatever dealer that you have, they ought to be able to set you up with a test ride, with a test drive. Now, the things you want to look for in a test ride when you're in a test boat is a couple different things: how well the boat handles, what the acceleration time is as far as how long it takes to get up on plane. That has a lot to do with if you use lead acid or lithium batteries. How the boat turns, how the boat maneuvers in different type of chop, how the boat lifts or how it doesn't lift, and how smooth the ride is when you hit some chop. You need to be out in at least like 1.5 feet or 2 feet of chop to get a good feel for how that hull will take and cut rough water. So all those things, are combined with that. And like I said, eventually, like I said, you just have to feel good about the way the boat looks and fishes. I mean, everybody has a little bit different thing they're after. Personally, like I said, I would never use a dual console. I want the floor space in a boat, so a dual console to me is a non-issue. Some people like them. Personally, guys, I think that dual consoles are overrated completely. I think they're not going to keep wind off your partner in there if that's what you're thinking, but it will tie up a lot of floor space and make it harder to move around in. So one of the things I would suggest is not to get a dual console. I don't really like those things. And finally, check the trailer out. If at all possible, guys, whatever boat you get a tandem axle trailer. Tandem axle trailers are safer, they last longer, they're built better, and if you have a blowout or flat tire on one of your tires, you can keep going. You can drive. If you have a flat tire on one side of a tandem axle, you can take that tire off and you can drive as far as you need to get the other one fixed, and you can't do that on a single axle. If you get a flat on a single axle, you're going to have to change it out, and you know how big of a pain in the butt that is at times. So anyway, that's just a few off the wall tips here, guys. Might save you guys some heartache down the road, and that's just what I found, what I look for in a boat. So hope it helps. See you guys.